I just feel from all the steroids that are reviewed that Nandrolone was a little bit less effective than it's made out to be, but also because there's so much scientific evidence on Nandrolone. So you go through the 2000 studies or something, and you realize like, it's been linked to left ventricular hypertrophy and gynecomastia and mood changes and depression. And you're like, maybe it's not such a great compound after all.
Let's talk about the ones on the list that are at the bottom that you're like, hey, this is common. A lot of people use this. Okay, let's talk about the injectable list. But the few at the bottom that were surprising to you that you ended up putting down at the bottom that maybe people are using commonly.
I think Nandrolone is a little bit of the bottom because it helps with joint lubrication. Is maybe beneficial when you're older, but you see a lot of guys that get either depressive symptoms from Nandrolone decanoate or libido issues. So a lot of guys prescribe it on TRT, so they go and test 150 milligrams and then 50 milligrams Nandrolone. They feel great.
Like 1,500 milligrams?
No, 50. 150 milligrams testosterone per week, so that's a TRT dose, and then 50 milligrams Nandrolone decanoate on top.
Do you know my first cycle ever, Steve? My first cycle ever, I did one Nandrolone a week. It was 100 milligrams, but my dad's friend was the VP of Organon, so I got ampules. I did 100 milligrams a week, and I got fucking jacked. 100 milligrams.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I think I was 20.
Yeah. And it probably took a while before you got shut down from that because your HPTA is resilient. So you probably had natural testosterone levels for the majority of that cycle.
I had 15 ampules in total, and I just did one a week for 15 weeks.
Sounds like my cycle. Well, I did one ampule of testosterone Arn't per week.
Yeah.
My dealer thought it was crazy. It's like, I can't make any money off you. If you're only buying one ampule per week, what are you doing? Anyway,
I got jacked, but you're right. I did feel like shit. I didn't feel good. I thought I was supposed to feel like Superman. I feel like shit, but I'm getting huge. I keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah, that's a stubborn bodybuilder, right? As long as you're getting results. Yeah. So with Nandrolone, it's quite popular, and it's got that allure from the 80s and 70s because the Nandrolone only cycles back in the day, Arnold Schwarzenegger, blah blah blah. But I think it's a little bit outdated unless you really have issues with your joints. Then a low dose goes a very long way. I mean, I can't complain because I'm running Nandrolone myself, but I'm in the off season right now, slamming weights. So I need it for joint lubrication.
What about Decadic? Does that not affect you? Like that's like a big thing in the bodybuilding circles of like, don't use Nandrolone because your Peter's not going to work.
Yeah. So of course it could be from your estrogen because Nandrolone is actually a metabolic intermediate of the conversion of testosterone into estradiol. So by taking exogenous Nandrolone, injecting that, you actually speed up the conversion, the aromatization of testosterone into estradiol. That's why guys have crazy high estrogen levels on Nandrolone, and thus prolactin goes up, and then high prolactin, high estrogen basically murders your penis. So you go on 500 tests and 250 deca, or 500 tests, 500 deca, and then your estrogen is sky high, and your prolactin is sky high, and your penis doesn't work. That can happen. I'm running that exact same protocol right now, and my libido is great.
That's good.
It doesn't affect me, but everybody's different, right? I mean, you have post-finasteride syndrome, where people crush their DHT levels, and they have terrible libido. So it's really individual. I never had any sexual libido issues. I would always get acne as a side effect. So you have like these topical side effects, right? Like gynecomastia. I'm prone to that. Right? I'm going to do my gyno surgery in January. You have acne, hair loss. Now, acne I suffer from. Hair loss, it's not really an issue for me. I never got bald from anything. This is just purely by choice. And then libido issues, depression, insomnia, anger management, right? All the mental side effects. And I mostly never suffered from those unless it was anger management issues. So Trembolone, Halotestin off the menu. But everybody's different. I know guys that are happy on Nandrolone or on Halotestin and happy on Trembolone. That actually improves their mood. So everybody's different in that sense. I just feel from all the steroids that are reviewed that Nandrolone was a little bit less effective than it's made out to be, but also because there's so much scientific evidence on Nandrolone. So you go through the 2000 studies or something, and you realize like, it's been linked to left ventricular hypertrophy and gynecomastia and mood changes and depression. And you're like, maybe it's not such a great compound after all. But then again, when you compare it to Trembolone, there's 0 studies on humans. So how can you really draw a conclusion out of using that when everybody uses that as well? I think dihydroboldenone is overrated. 2 studies, both showing liver toxicity. I think if you have to choose between injectables, it's basically test and Primobolan.
Those
And
are the two best?
Yeah, the two best ones. Yeah.
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 Primobolan, I remember Primobolan. I did a couple cycles in my life, and I just loved it. I felt so, I don't know, just so like capable. I'm like, whatever I do in the gym, I can keep going. Like it was almost like improve my recovery index. My recovery capacity was just like skyrocketed. So what's happening there physiologically? Why is Primobolan so effective?
So Primobolan has a blood building effect, so it increases your hematocrit to a little bit greater extent than testosterone, but not as much as boldenone. People compare Primobolan often to Mastrone, whereas Mastrone has no blood building effects, even at dosages of 2,800 milligrams per day. But that was taken orally.
Per day?
Yeah, per day. Yeah. I don't know.
Who's doing that? Is that a horse?
So, no, humans. Yeah, they wanted to see if it could increase hematocrit. So they're comparing Mastrone versus Anadrol to see what has the most blood building effect. So that's why Mastrone was used as a breast cancer medication, and Anadrol was used as a anemic medication. Right? Of course, Anadrol is still being used, but Mastrone has already been discontinued in favor of Nolvadex and other selective estrogen receptor modulators. So Primobolan I like because it has a cosmetic benefit. It seems that some of the metabolites of Primobolan actually act as an aromatase inhibitor, which hasn't been scientifically proven in humans, but we can see this in blood work, anecdotally just over and over and over again. And if you biotransform Primobolan with fungi, there's two metabolites that actually inhibit the aromatase enzyme in vitro. So that's a little bit of scientific evidence. But again, how many people have fungi in their body that can convert the Primobolan into an aromatase inhibitor? Probably not the case, right? So we have to extrapolate from the scientific evidence and then combine it with the blood work. So I feel that testosterone and Primobolan are reasonably safe. Primobolan has about 180 studies, and Mastrone about 80 studies that you can read, mostly on humans. You see that Primobolan is just as effective to mitigate cancer as Mastrone was. But
mitigate what type of cancer?
Breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
It's about 30%, 35% effective. But Nandrolone is also 35% effective.
Is that after they've got cancer and it'll reduce the proliferation?
Allow them to go into remission, yeah. But selective estrogen receptor modulators and aromatase inhibitors have a far higher efficacy rate without the virilization. But they didn't exist, right? So in the 70s, they had Mastrone and Primo and SERMs, I think, and aromatase inhibitors, something from the 80s or the 90s. I'll tell you a funny story. Proviron and halotestin were used as fertility medications. So Proviron, in, I think, 50 studies, were able to improve from subfertility level, not complete azoospermia or infertility levels, but subfertility, so that's below the World Health Organization standards of having 20 million per 1 milliliter and certain amount of morphology and motility. They were able to raise that from people who were not able to conceive to live pregnancy over the course of a couple of years. So there's, because of Proviron and halotestin, there's hundreds of babies that were being born. So if you go far enough back into the scientific evidence, you could say that Proviron and halotestin are great fertility aids to improve your fertility parameters, and you don't need HCG or FSH.
Interesting. So one of the things that I've heard over time was how specifically those two, and I think androgen as well, or excuse me, Anadrol as well, I heard could be leading to some genetic deformities in children, obviously at the level of methylation. I don't know if you've seen anything like that, because I've heard some speculation on, steroid use. You may or may not have heard this. So apparently men over 40 are generally the greater contributors. So having a dad over 40 is generally the greatest contributor of autism.
Yeah.
And so there's also, so that was one study I've seen. And there's also the suggestion that steroids would positively contribute to that being over 40.
It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I haven't found that study myself. I really tried to look for a negative correlation. So I have a video on my YouTube channel, how steroids affect fertility, and that's how I came to the Proviron and the halotestin. But I couldn't find anything regarding autism or how do you say this? Infertility, sort of say. But I classified everything in that video.
I didn't see steroids. I saw age and autism.
Oh, age. Yeah. Okay. So I didn't look into that. It could be that as you age, you are more susceptible to oxidative stress. And it's the Y chromosome that's more susceptible to oxidative stress. It's also one of the reasons why men on steroids are more likely to get girls, because the Y chromosome is more damaged. So you get more DNA fragmentation, resulting in less implantations or live where the semen connects with the egg and
that
resulting
makes
in
sense.
implantation. So that those are not fertilized, so they're discarded. And then the XX chromosomes, they have less oxidative stress, less DNA fragmentation, so they're more likely to conceive an embryo, and those can implant into the uterus. So this is one of the reasons why possibly men could have more girls based on the oxidative stress caused by steroids.
That
And of
makes
course,
sense.
the intense training. Yeah. I'm still working on that video, so eventually I'll release that. It's quite compelling, the evidence. Yeah. But autism,
testosterone, Primobolan are our best injectables. We want to avoid DECA. Winstrol is somewhere in the middle. Trends not for human consumption, although that doesn't happen.
Nandrolone I'm not against. It has its place, right? But purely for joint lubrication. So if you can't get the job done with testosterone and Primobolan, maybe instead of taking 200 tests, you take 150 tests, and you replace that 50 milligrams of testosterone, 50 milligrams of Nandrolone, while keeping about 200 milligrams of Primo in the picture. So you have about 400 milligrams of steroids per week, and that seems to be an ideal cycle because Primobolan is preventing the conversion of testosterone into estradiol and minimizes its negative effect that Nandrolone has on the conversion. So your estrogen levels stay in range. So now you don't need to use an aromatase inhibitor. So you use less medication, which is less negative burden on your lipids. That being said, I'm not against the use of aromatase inhibitors because people misinterpret that scientific evidence greatly. You should never use an aromatase inhibitor. Well, if you take from the breast cancer studies, where serum estradiol is already low in postmenopausal states, and then you bring it down to zero, yes, of course you're going to get hot flashes. And of course you're going to get bone demineralization. And of course you're going to get hair loss. That's not what we're trying to use these aromatase inhibitors for. We're just trying to use it to bring it back in range. So that's very dogmatic in the fitness industry right now that nobody should use aromatase inhibitors, which I'm certainly not for.
Jay Campbell's perpetuating that it causes microblistering of the vascular network. That's his angle. I've never heard that. I've never seen the studies.
Couldn't find any scientific evidence. I spent a good week on it, on all the evidence of aromatase inhibitors, and feel free to quote me a citation down below. If that's the case, then I'm willing to revisit my stance. But I couldn't find anything in the scientific evidence that these drugs in particularly cause negative health effects, and all the negative health effects are related to low estradiol levels. Which again, if your serum estradiol levels are chronically low, then yes, you reduce the quality of the arterial lining, like the microvasculature.
Yep.
And then when you drink alcohol or you smoke or your oxidative stress or your lipoprotein A levels are high, then yeah, you're literally damaging the inside of your arteries. So again, is that related to chronically low estradiol levels or the molecule itself? I highly doubt it's the molecule itself. But again, I'm willing to revisit that if I see some scientific evidence.